In this episode of Disaster Zone, we look at disaster when lightning strikes. On the ground or in the sky, it matters not, because nowhere and no one is safe from these high voltage electric daggers that will fry you in a split second. So while lightning can be awe-inspiring and spectacular by sight, when it does strike, it can sometimes lead to unimaginable disaster. The date is May 5th, 2019, just another ordinary day. That is, until the skies above Moscow Sheremetyevo Airport became cloaked in darkness as thunderstorm clouds loomed ominously. As Flight 1492 started climbing out into the turbulent skies, their ascent was quickly interrupted by nature's fury, as the aircraft was struck with a blinding bolt of lightning, sending shockwaves throughout the front to the back. Electrical systems flickered, and panic filled the cabin as the plane shuddered under the force of the impact. The aircraft's primary radio and autopilot became inoperative, leaving the pilots battling the elements in manual control mode, ultimately deciding that an emergency landing and return to Sheremetyevo Airport was the best course of action. With the storm still lashing down, the pilots could finally spot the runway in sight, and disaster looked like it might be averted. However, as the plane made contact, it bounced hard on the runway, the impact causing the landing gear to collapse, resulting in fuel spewing from the wings. And terrifyingly, the moments that followed were incredibly captured by those inside the aircraft itself. CCTV footage also captures the moment the plane slides to a stop and the evacuation procedure commences from inside the plane, an inferno now gradually swallowing the plane from the rear end. On the ground, emergency responders fought against time to quell the raging fire and rescue those trapped inside. The fate of the passengers and the crew hung in the balance as the world watched on in suspense. But as the smoke cleared and the flames subsided, the true toll of the disaster came to light. Less than half of the flight had escaped. Amidst the wreckage, 41 lives were lost, and the survivors were left with harrowing memories of this tragic ordeal. Pilot error was identified as a significant factor in the disaster, along with the lightning strike that caused the electrical failure. But lightning should never cause a plane disaster like this, so questions began to be raised regarding the aircraft involved.
This is a SUKHOI SUPERJET 100, carries about 100 passengers, usually on flights about 2 hours or so within Russia. And what's notable, it is the only Russian-built aircraft since Soviet times. It's a prestige project for the Putin government, even though there have been ongoing concerns about performance and production.
The same day as the accident, a petition to ground the SSJ-100 fleet was launched on change.org. By May 8th, it had collected over 140,000 signatures, but when the Kremlin press secretary Dmitry Peskov was asked for a response, he said that the decision should be taken by the competent aviation authorities and not by citizens who signed petitions on the change.org portal.
Russian officials gave an update earlier this morning. They say they have no plans to ground the type of aircraft involved.
On the 18th of May, another Aeroflot SSJ-100 flight aborted its takeoff due to a hydraulics failure indication, following which the passengers refused to fly on the SUPERJET, and we're not sure we can blame them. But it seems that planes aren't the only mode of transport that are vulnerable to lightning strikes, as we find out in our next case. The Yongtai-Wen railway line was China's newest high-speed train track. The Chinese government would boast about how fast they managed to build the line, the trains, and train the drivers, but it would be this rush to success that would come at the severe cost of overlooking some major details. In the early evening of July 23, 2011, train D3115, a high-speed train built by Bombardier, was taking 1,072 people from Hangzhou to Fuzhou South. Dark clouds brought rain to the surrounding area, and as D3115 was travelling across a viaduct, lightning struck the track. This sudden surge of electricity caused the train to stall and lose all power. As a result, the train was helplessly losing speed quickly as it was crossing the viaduct 20 meters above the ground. And disaster was just around the corner, as not far behind was train D301, a bullet train built by Kawasaki taking 558 passengers from Beijing to Fuzhou. Normally, with the stalled train stuck on the same line, the signal lights on the track should go from green to red, but due to the lightning strike, it caused the first fault in this soon-to-be deadly disaster. Reports also stated that staff responsible for relaying the message of a stalled train had failed to get that message across. As train D301 sped unknowingly towards the stalled train, disaster was now only seconds away. At 8:29 Chinese Standard Time, train D301 smashed into the back of D3115, and the crash caused both trains to derail, sending 4 train cars to fall off the viaduct and crash into the ground 20 meters below. The scenes of the aftermath from this accident are shocking and put the devastation into perspective. 40 lives were claimed and 197 people were injured. So what caused this disaster? Well, there were signs of corruption within the Chinese government.
They sent out instructions to Chinese journalists covering the tragedy. Do not investigate the causes of the accident. Concentrate on touching stories. Do not question. Do not elaborate.
And definitely some corner cutting taken by the China Railway Signal and Communications Corporation, who designed and installed the equipment.
The problem is the government accountability. Some leaders should be accountable for what they said.
There have been claims that government officials ordered bulldozers to push the remains of one of the wreckage train carriages into a pit and bury it. And this was in order to cover up some of the evidence.
People are extremely fearful of disobeying authorities, but I want to show you one of the biggest newspapers here today. It says, "This accident should never have happened. 为何发生? Why did it happen?" A very brave headline.
As of July 2023, this crash remains the only serious accident on the Chinese high-speed railway network. A network which carries over 2 billion passengers each year and still is undergoing a large-scale expansion. All the loss of life and all the hidden agendas and shortcomings shockingly brought to light in an instant by one fierce and deadly lightning strike. But if you thought this case was scary, stay tuned for our next case as we travel from Asia to Africa for a sporting event that left everyone involved shocked to their core. This next case takes us back to 1998 in South Africa's vibrant capital city, Johannesburg, known for incredibly warm weather and inevitably some shocking storm systems as well. It was a night where a large rumbling thunderstorm had been brewing in the atmosphere and was threatening to unleash on the residents going about their activities below. One event in particular was a hotly contested football match between two longtime rivals. This was a South African Premier League rivalry between Morocco Swallows and Jomo Cosmos. The Morocco Swallows were chasing the game at 2-0 down as the match entered into the final 15 minutes. Thus far, officials hadn't deemed the storm bad enough to halt the contest, and both teams seemed happy to continue in the spirit of the game. In fact, in the first few seconds of this clip, you can barely tell there's a storm passing through. As an attacking plane neared one end of the field, out of nowhere, a huge electrifying bolt of lightning struck the field of play.
Bolts of thunder and the players have gone down.
Immediately, several players who were struck by the lightning collapsed to the ground or dropped to their knees. Staff and medical personnel rushed to their aid, checking vital signs and providing medical relief to those who lay unconscious. Just take a look again, as the lightning strike can clearly be seen striking the ground in an instant, players reacting by falling and holding their heads. Happening in a split second, these shocking lightning strikes can catch even the quickest of players. But from one disaster on the ground to our next disaster in the air that's almost inexplicable. On December 15th, 2014, the skies above the Shetland Islands witnessed a heart-stopping aviation disaster. This is the chilling tale of Logan Air Flight 6780, a seemingly routine domestic flight that was about to become embroiled in a battle for survival. The day began like any other, passengers boarding the Saab 2000, the Spirit of Aberdeen, at Aberdeen Airport. In the cockpit, the captain, an experienced pilot, and his co-pilot and first officer prepared for their flight to Sundberg Airport. Little did they know that the unpredictable forces of nature would soon put their skills to the ultimate test. As the aircraft approached Sundberg, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The air crackled with electricity, and suddenly, the unthinkable happened. Lightning struck the Saab 2000. Now usually, planes are supposed to withstand lightning strikes, so why did this one bring Flight 6780 right to the brink of total disaster? In the cockpit, alarms blared as the pilots fought to regain control, but fate had other plans. The autopilot, unbeknownst to them, remained engaged despite their efforts. Every pitch-up command was countered by the autopilot's pitch trim function, pushing the aircraft into a dangerous nose-down position. The plane was now hurtling down towards the North Sea, just 1,100 feet above the water's surface. Panic gripped the passengers as the crew desperately battled against the uncontrollable forces threatening to consume them. But then, at the last possible moment, the autopilot finally disengaged, thanks to a faulty sensor. With seconds to spare, the pilot's pitch-up commands finally took effect, pulling the plane back from the brink of disaster. In the aftermath, investigators delved into the incident, discovering the truth about the autopilot's role and the pilot's instinctive response to the lightning strike. In response to this incident, the AAIB issued crucial safety recommendations to prevent such a close call from ever happening again. Logan Air Flight 6780 remains a haunting reminder of the unpredictability of the skies above and the unwavering resolve of the human spirit. For those on board that day, a harrowing experience will be forever etched in their memories.
The dive was so fast, you just felt like your heart was in your mouth. I had no idea how close we were to the sea. You couldn't see anything, it was just pitch black. It was terrifying, it was really scary.
So, which of these electrifying lightning strikes shocked you the most and sent shivers down your spine? Let us know in the comments, leave a like, and hit that subscribe button to see more disastrous content just like this on Disaster Zone.